In this session, we are going to discuss on Java pass by value, or it can be called as Java call by value. So there are two things we are going to discuss here. One is pass by value with variables and pass by value with objects. So the first thing is pass by value with variables. So let's take a main method in which we are having integer n is equal to 10. So whenever you are writing a method, to hold its values, to hold the values of variables that you define inside the method, a stack memory will be created. It's a kind of a temporary memory that is given for each method. So if you have 10 methods in a program, all the methods is going to get its own stack memory. So this stack memory, what is going to happen is it's going to hold the values, the hold the variables defined inside that method. So in this case, we are having integer n is equal to 10. So it is going to allocate a stack memory and then hold the value of n here. So next step, what we are doing is we are calling an increment of n. That means we are passing increment of 10 here. The value of n is the one which we are passing to the method. So we have created a new method, and that method is just taking the value of n and it is incrementing the value, it is printing the value. So the moment you call increment method, it is going to allocate a stack memory for it, for the increment method, and whatever value you are going to pass, the parameters or the variables that is defined inside that, those will be having memory allocated. So here you are seeing n again as 10, and this n variable is completely different from what you have it in the main method. So what we are doing here is we are copying the value of n, which is 10, to the uh, to the another stack memory, and that stack memory is holding its own value, which is referred as n here. So this n is different, and what you have it in main method is different. Here just it is you are copying the 10 value into the other method. So now you are updating n plus plus in the increment method. So what is going to happen is it is going to update the n value in the increment method and not in the main method. So let's see from the beginning. So n was having the main method n was having 10. Increment of n is going to pass 10 to the increment method. So the value 10 is getting copied into the stack memory of increment 10 actually. Now what's going to happen here is n plus plus is going to be 11 here. So which is we are incrementing the n value with 1, and that increment value happens in the stack memory of increment. Now we are printing the n value, which is going to print as 11 here. And once it is 11 is printed, the function is completed, the method is completed. So it is going to return back to the calling function. The calling function is nothing but the main. So in the main method, we are again printing the n value. Now what will be printed in as the n value? Is it going to be 11 or is it going to be 10? So what always is going to happen is the main method is going to look out for its own stack. It cannot access the increment stack and access the value of that. So what is the value that is available in the stack memory of main stack is still 10. So what is going to get printed in the main method is going to be just 10. So the updated value is happening only in the increment stack, and that will not be affecting anyway the value of n in the main stack. So that is nothing but what you call it as a pass by value. So we are just copying the value and giving it to another method, and whatever changes you are making in that method to that n value will not reflect back in the main method. So as an analogy, you can take, we are having a original document. It can be a license or it can be any document what you have as a original document, and you wanted to take copies of the document. Once you take a copy of the original document and you write in the copy, you do some modifications in the copy of the document. You can sign in that, you can scribble in that, whatever it is. You are updating only the copy of that document, which will not be reflected in the original document. The original document will be still there. Only you take a copy of that and you updated the copies, which is not going to reflect back into the original document. This can be considered as an analogy of pass by value with variables. Let's see now how pass by value with objects works. So let's take a class here. The class is point. So this basically represents a coordinate in a graph. For the point class is made up of integer x and integer y. So you need x axis and y axis. So it is represented with two integers. So it's a user defined data type. Point is a user defined data type which is made of two integers, which is x and y. Now I have a main method So the moment I have a main method, I am going to get a stack memory created, and I'm going to create an object point p is equal to new point of. So as you know, when you do a new point of, it is going to have a heap memory, and in that heap memory, you are going to create a you are going to reserve some memory locations to store a point, to store a instance of point. So so here we are going to have let's say 4200 is a free memory location that is available for us, and it is going to allocate the memory, and it is going to reserve two spaces there for storing x and y. Now what we do is in our, so the 4200 is returned back, because once you create the object, that memory, the starting memory location is going to be returned back to the calling place. So point p is going to get 4200 back after creating the object in the heap. Now main method knows how to access this object. Main method knows the p, with the help of p reference variable, it will be able to access the object in the heap memory. Now what we are going to do here is we are going to make this value p dot x equal to 10, p dot y is equal to 10. So with the help of the reference handle, I'm just changing the x and y value to 10 and 10. Now what I do here is I go back and call the increment of p here. So here I'm not passing an integer, I'm passing an object here. So I'm passing object into another method. In the previous scenario, we passed just an integer. Here we are passing an object. So this, when I say I'm passing an object, it's actually not passing an object. I'm passing a reference variable here, which is pointing to an object. I'm not passing the object itself, but I'm passing a reference or a handle or an address to another method. But it is not actually the object itself. I'm passing a reference of that object to another method. Now what is going to happen here is in that increment, in the increment method, it receives the point argument, it receives the point reference variable, and it is trying to increment p dot x plus plus and p dot y plus plus. So what is going to happen here? You, when I say it is having a new method, it is going to have another stack memory created for the increment, and in that stack memory I am passing a, you know, the reference variable, right? So it is going to take a copy of that. When I say take a copy of that, it is not going to copy the object here, but it is going to take a copy of the reference variable. So it is going to take a copy of 4200. So it is going to get the 4200 copied into the stack memory. So now what it means here is you have two reference variables pointing to the same object. Earlier in this case, you are just copying a value, but here we are copying a reference, and that when you copy a reference, what it means is you are taking a copy of the reference, but you are basically pointing to the same memory location. You are pointing to the same object. So what will happen here is when you try to update the variable to x plus plus, it is going to update the same object. It is not going to create a new object and update it, because you are not copying the object itself, you are copying the reference variable which is pointing to that particular object. So now we have two references pointing to the same object. When you update anything, now the update is going to happen inside the object as well. So when you come back and print the system.out.println p.x and p.y in your main method, still you are going to have 4200 for p. It's not changing. It is going to refer to the main stack only, and it is going to take the 4200 value. But with the 4200 value, if you go to access x and y, that value would have changed, and it would have said 11 and 11 instead of printing 10 and 10, because those values have got updated. P value remains same, but p dot x and y got updated because of the, because it is a reference variable. So that's the difference you need to understand when you do pass by value with variables and pass by value with objects. And the analogy for this is, let's say you have a car and you have two keys for the car. Okay, so that means you have two reference variable which can access that car object. Now with these two keys, let's say you have one key, your spouse is having one key, and let's say your spouse is going inside the car, and he or she may be spilling some juice in the car seat actually. Now if you go with the car with your key and open the car, it doesn't mean that you will see the car seat without the juice spilled out, right? Because it's not going to be in the same state. The car is not going to be in the same state as you left actually, because there is some changes done to the object, and you are just having a key for that and to access that object. So even the keys can be duplicated, but the object is going to be the same here. So if with one key, if some updates has been made to that object, if you access with the other key, you are going to see that reflection there. It is not going to be in the same state what you left for, because you have not had two cars here. You are just having one car, but two references or two two handles for that, two handles or two keys for that car. Okay, let's see this in a how to do this in a Eclipse. So we will see we'll create one class. So this is point class and finish. So this class is not doing anything. It's just having integer x and integer y. It has two properties. And I can write a method behavior as well if you need it. Like I can say void display. This is just going to display the it can have like void display is just going to display the coordinates. So system.out.println, I can say x plus and then put a comma and then put a y here. Just it's going to print x comma y. Okay, so now I am going to write another class point test to test this point by creating some objects. So let's do another class which is point test. Have a main method. So here what I'm going to do is point p is equal to new point of. So I created a point object now, and now I'm going to use p dot x equal to 10, p dot y is equal to 10, and now I call a method called increment of this p object. So I'm going to write a method increment of the p object. So you can say create a method, and this method is going to say p dot x plus plus and p dot y plus plus. It's going to increment the x and y coordinates. So what I want to do here is I want to print the coordinates before and after. So before I call the method increment, I'm printing it, and here after I'm printing it, and while in the main method also I'm just trying to printing it. So this is just going to print system.out.println in all these three places. So now let's try to save this and run this program. So you see here before it is printing 10 comma 10, and when it calls the increment method, it is changing to 11 comma 11, and when it is coming back, when you print this, it is not still remaining as 10 comma 10, it is changing to 11 comma 11. Okay, but if I do like p is equal to null here, that is not a big difference. You can, or you can point to a different object, you can make p is equal to null, it doesn't harm. So since p is not pointing to anything, when you come back it is not going to affect this, because this will have its own stack variable of p which is still having 4200. So any modifications that you are doing it for the p itself is not going to affect it. It is like you have two keys for a card, and if you damage the key, if your spouse key is damaged, that doesn't make any difference to the object. It doesn't make any difference to the card. If you damage the key, that's only the key is getting damaged, but the object is not getting damaged. But if you are damaging the using the key, if you are damaging the object, or if you are making any updating to the object, then even if you access with the other key, the object is already damaged. You are going to see the updated or damaged object actually. So even if you make p is equal to null, you are not going to see any difference in the results. It is going to be the same. When you make p is equal to null, it does not, when it comes back, it is not making it as null here. So you will still have the p's value here, which is maintained in the stack memory of the main program. So this is with pass by value with objects. Let's see one more example for pass by value with variables. So Let me open new class for that. Make pass by value test. I'll use the main method here itself. So here what we are going to do is say integer n is equal to 10, and then system.out.println n. I just call increment method of n, and then I print the okay, I'm going to create the method. Click on this. So this is going to basically make n plus plus and then do a sysout. Sorry. Do a sysout of n. I'll just make it a little bit clear, like it's where this sysout is. It's happening in this sysout is happening in increment method. And I would like to do this in main as well, same thing, so that we know which method this n is getting printed. Okay, so now run this. You see in the main method it was 10 before, and then it is calling the increment method, it is making it to 11, and you are printing in increment method it became 11. But the moment you return back to the main method, it was still, the value that got updated here will not reflect here, because you are just uh, taking a copy of this value and passing it, not actually passing the n's reference itself here. So we are just going to, when you come back, we are going to get only the value as 10 here.